I'm Commissioner Nancy Jester, and welcome to Nancy Jester Reports for Tuesday, April 16th, 2019. Today, your Board of Commissioners met as a committee of the whole to review their agenda for next Tuesday's meeting, where we will vote and take action on the items we reviewed today and in committee. Usually on our committee days, we do get some presentations. Today, we did talk about the complete count for the census. Commissioner Larry Johnson is really leading this effort. So if you're interested in census information, I've got some information here in the office. Just let me know. But we will be working on the census count with all of our coordinating state and local or state and federal agencies. So we went over various things and assigned them to committee in today's committee of the whole meeting. Nothing really jumped out at me to discuss. One of the items that will be on our agenda to vote next week, and it's on our consent agenda, so I'm happy about that, is a $60,000 appropriation that is in reserved for commissioner designated allocations, and this is designated for District 1, so I'm able to unilaterally designate those funds for use in District 1, and I've got a $60,000 grant that we're giving to the PCID for some economic development in that CID, so I'm looking forward to that happening, and they're doing good work in the PCID, so I'm happy to support that. So in addition to meeting as a committee of the whole, I had two committee meetings today, the Finance Committee, which I chair, and the Public Works Committee, of which I'm a member. So we'll go over the Finance Committee, and so we reviewed financial statements of the county in today's Finance Audit and Budget Committee, and they're looking good. And as I would like to note, since taking over the Finance Committee a couple of years ago, we have financial statements. So 2 years ago, we didn't have financial statements. We were not tracking how we were spending our money in any way, shape, or form. So every month, though, we do track it. We track every one of our tax funds. So we have general fund, fire fund, police fund, designated fund, special service fund, bond funds, and then we have our enterprise fund, which are sanitation and watershed, and we are tracking these. We're also now tracking the SPLOST funds on a quarterly basis, so we are due for a quarterly report from our program manager for SPLOST in our next Finance Committee meeting, so I'll report to you on that. I will say, and I think I've said overall, I was very disappointed with how slowly we got started on SPLOST. It wasn't until 9 months or more after the referendum was passed that the board was given a procurement for our program manager. So we were just really late starting that off. I think by the end of a close of business on 12/31/18, the county had spent $0 on road resurfacing of SPLOST, even though we'd collected it since April of that year. And I believe recently the county sent out a press release saying they've now used or paved the first 10 miles of SPLOST. So that's very disappointing that we are so slow. That being said, it is kind of kicking into high gear now. So I do anticipate a lot more SPLOST activities. I've gotten calls from various people asking me about our SPLOST activities. So way too slow to start. I think, like I said, the administration was just really slow in getting these procurements to the commission, and we can't do anything until the administration and the CEO bring these items to us. So that's why I think things were slow in 2018. Again, I think we're hitting our stride now, so I'm looking for some more activity there, and I will report that to you. And when we get our financial statement on that at the next FAB, I'll share that as well. So that was productive. We also had a discussion about financial policies. That is also an area where, when I took over the Finance Committee, we did not have financial policies that guided the county's work. So it was just kind of very haphazard the way we were approaching our budgeting, how we are grading ourselves on our fidelity to our budget, and what our goals are for fund balances, what our goals are for capital budgeting, all this kind of thing. So we are in the process of developing policies ever so slowly, one by one. So we developed policies last year. Our highlights were that we developed a debt and investment policy, so I'm very pleased about that. We are now working on fund balance policy, capital budgeting policy, and operating budget policy. So these are three very important things, especially as we know you have good years and bad years with the economy, and when you go into some rough patches, if you have policies to drive the way you're going to spend your money, then I think that better protects the taxpayers from you having government that eats into reserve funds. This means that we're going to be building reserves appropriately and guarding them and putting the guardrails around them appropriately. So this is one of the legacies I hope to leave at the Commission, is certainly driving this policy improvement for fiscally prudent behavior. So that is the main, those were the two main things we did in the Finance Committee today. We did approve a grant that we're getting from the Justice Department, just some grant intake for public safety, the district attorney, and so on. I will say we do have the procurement ordinance is in the Finance Committee. It had been deferred, so we didn't talk about it at today's meeting. We're going to start biting off little chunks of that, so we're trying to try and approve small component parts that we're going to codify an ordinance and policy on how we should procure things. And this is kind of a long time coming. We had a committee, an ad hoc committee, not in finance, but just to develop this ordinance, this procurement ordinance using best practices. They've written it, and now we're going to vet it through the Finance Committee. So we're going to start working on that in earnest at our next Finance Committee meeting. So there's that. I also met in Public Works today, so that's the other committee I sit on, and we went over a number of procurement items, all very important, but I won't detail them all here. Let me give you the highlights. Some things that concern me but were necessary are some change orders that we had to approve to the Snapfinger wastewater treatment plant expansion that's been going on. We've reached basically a settlement with one of our contractors for a delay claim. Not happy to have to go through that process, but at least I think we've turned the corner on getting things going. Various other sort of commodity things, all kinds of services and commodities we need, from rock crushing to various chemicals for treatment of wastewater, and other things. So that all went fairly smoothly. We had some updates scheduled, our stormwater utility update, a sanitation update, and a consent decree update. We did get the stormwater utility update, and we are working, we've got significant stormwater failure because our infrastructure is so old, and we're working with citizens in District 1 certainly to mitigate some of the problems they're having by implementing fixes to their stormwater infrastructure. So we discussed that. We got an overall look about what they did in 2018. One of the things that I keep focusing on, and my other commissioners do as well, and we're looking forward to getting this, is a stormwater fee sufficiency study. The County of DeKalb hasn't changed its stormwater fee for a long time, and so you get billed that on your tax bill every year. And you've seen some of the new cities that have formed. When they look at the aging infrastructure they've inherited, they've had significant stormwater fee increases so that they can better plan for the capital improvements they're going to need to make there and are making there. And when we did a survey of jurisdictions around us, we found that DeKalb County was actually quite low. So while I appreciate low taxes and low fees for government, this is one we haven't looked at in a long time, and we have significant stormwater failures, the piping system for that. So we're going to have to look at adjusting that fee eventually. We have not started that discussion, but I'm just letting you know that's coming. But we did talk about some of the work we're planning on doing in 2019, stuff we did in 2018. So that's of interest, especially in the Briarcliff corridor, anywhere up and down that area. We've had tremendous amounts of flooding and stormwater failures there, as well as the Embry Hills Northcrest area. I know of areas, problems there as well. So we're continuing to work on that. We did not go through, but we did get a handout for a presentation on the consent decree. As you know, we're under federal consent decree for all of our poor sanitary sewer system infrastructure, and Technically, we're supposed to be finished by June of 2020 for all of our upgrades and fixes. This is where we have all these sewer leaks from, and you see these reported in my newsletter and in my social media feeds. So this is that issue. These pipes are separate from stormwater pipes, two totally different systems. So our sanitary sewer system is in bad shape. We're supposed to fix it by 2020. It's not going to be done by 2020, but we received this presentation, some of which I don't think is congruent with information I've received in the past. I think there's a little bit of Pollyanna going on in here in this particular presentation. We have been very slow to fix our priority sewer areas. I'm not in agreement here with the projections to be finished by June 2020, which would be congruent with our consent decree. I don't think we're going to make that deadline. I think we've already said that. So I'm not sure how much of this particular presentation I think is credible. I need to compare it to previous notes I have, but nonetheless, I'm in possession of it, so I will review that for you. We are way past the deadline on having our hydraulic model, our system-wide hydraulic model. We had a deadline way before this year on having that done under the consent decree. That's not done. It's still not done. There's basin by basin. You have to do it, and so it's going to be quite some time before we understand what that model tells us. That model will then inform us on the unknown set of fixes that we need. So we don't even know all the fixes that we're going to need to make to the sewer system, and until we understand that, we won't have that data to make the fixes. So that's just a little update on the consent decree. Hopefully we'll get some more information. I'll give you a better update on that. We continue to post the sewer spills on our social media and in our newsletter. If you have any questions about that, let us know. Send us an email. But I think that concludes today's work. As always, keep in touch with our office, and join me again next time for another edition of Nancy Jester Reports. Thank you.